Legends! Once more, it's Hellmouth Hotline with your host, Rodney Stewart, and we're doing some more Buffy in this episode with a little episode of the show called Witch. Witch is one that has an ending to it that has kind of stuck with me over the years. I'll explain that in more detail once we get into the actual review, but this is one of these examples of an episode of a show where you think at the start, this isn't going to be my cup of tea, but by the end of it, that was nice. So sit back and enjoy the episode. We started off strong for the first two episodes, came out swinging, and as I said, the first two episodes kind of mirrored the original film in a way. And yes, vampires get their asses handed to them, good guys save the day, all's fine and well. So we continue on in episode 3 here, entitled Witch. Now, in all the seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and again an Angel, there is one main bad guy or demon in the series, and you know, the one storyline runs throughout the series, but every once in a while episodes break off into standalone episodes that have nothing to do with that main storyline whatsoever. Now this is the first one in the series that does that there. It's about a witch. Starts off cheerleader training, and it's a genius start to the episode. Giles is giving Buffy a grill and is like, I can't believe you're going to join this cult, what are you thinking of, sort of thing. And then of course the camera pans around Buffy. She's standing in the cheerleader outfit with a pair of pom-poms. So off to a nice little bit of humour at the start. Then before the music, we see like a point of view perspective. Someone's in like an attic somewhere. It's like a setup of like a voodoo dolls and that sort of thing, and you see the hands coming on lifting dolls, and you know, of course we see there is a witchcraft involved in this episode. So we open up anyway. To be honest, straight off the mark here, guys, I'm just going to say, when I first watched this episode, I didn't have high hopes for it. Well, whenever I seen this episode, I was only, when it first aired, I was only something like 19, 20 years old at that stage. And I was in it for the action and whatnot, and I was like, I wanted to see something, you know, more than cheerleader training, and that's what I was put this episode down to at the start. But just in saying that there, I just wanted to say that because this episode, probably more than any episode in all 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, stands out to me alone just because of the ending to this episode. There's a thing that happens at the end of this episode, a visual that's just, for some reason, and it's so simple, but it's stuck with me throughout the years. Like, it's one thing, if I think back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the end of this episode in particular is one that stands out to me. Anyway, we get into it. The girls go to the cheerleader training, of course. Xander's hanging out with Buffy and Willow as per usual, and he's like, you know, perving all the girls and whatnot. And you know, of course we're still at the point where Buffy is very fresh to Sunnydale High, so there's a lot of students that she doesn't know yet. Willow introduces her to a girl called Amy. They're all talking about this girl that's up just about to do the first audition for the cheerleader squad, and she's dancing and whatnot, and Amy is saying to Buffy that she's professionally trained and everything like that there. Amy herself trains 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon with her mother, and Buffy's like, oh, I don't know, like, I didn't know there was such a thing as trainers for cheerleaders. Anyway, the girl's dancing, and next thing she catches on fire. 2 hands catching fire, or 2 arms. Buffy saves the day, gets a flag or something down, like puts the fire out, and we kick into the episode, and it's a lot of people trying, Giles and the gang, Buffy, Willow and Xander, trying to work out what's happening here. We get a few shots and a few sequences with Buffy and her mother in this episode too, and you can kind of see the strained relationship that the two of them have there, and the hard work that Buffy's mother is actually trying to put into actually making a connection, a deeper connection with Buffy, and you see Buffy's rebellious side against her mother in this episode. Anyway, there's more about her mother's gallery in this episode, and it's a bit of a distraction as well. That's kind of adding to the stress between the two of them. Anyway, we get back to the school again. We get back in, we see more of the cheerleader training and whatnot, and Amy Akasane knocks Cordelia over, and Cordelia jumps up and says, "That's not my fault, it's her fault," and whatnot. Cordy's just been Cordelia in this one. And we found out Amy's mother was a cheerleader after this sequence. She opens up to Buffy about, I need to get onto this team because my mother was a championship cheerleader whenever she was my age, and I can't fail at this because my mother's a bit of a perfectionist and whatnot. This episode as well, and I can't recall many other. Cordelia has always been a bitch in the early episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and there's a sequence in this where Cordelia actually threatens Amy, "If I don't make this team, I'm going to make you pay for it," and she really does drive it home, like, "I'm going to kill you," sort of thing. So yes, the names come out for the actual lineup for the squad. Buffy and Amy both find out they haven't made the squad, but they're stand-ins for, if anybody gets injured, they've got a stand-in to step in their place. And again, we see more on-scene voodoo, so to speak. Like, we get the POV shot of someone setting up spells and whatnot, and Cordelia's name is mentioned in this one here. So she is the next one on the list that this witch is going after. Essentially, the witch in this episode is trying to take out cheerleaders. So we think, we don't know who it is at this point. There's a lot of trying to think what's happening and whatnot. Cordelia goes to driver's ed to try and get her license sorted, and she gets into the car. She's having trouble seeing, she's got blurred vision, and she gets into the car out of control, through the fence, out into the road. The teacher gets them out of the car. He's like, "Get out." Cordelia gets out. At this stage she can't really find her way, and there's a post van of some sort come up the street. As she gets out of the car, she finally sees it at the last minute, too late to move, but again Buffy jumps in, saves the day, pulls Cordelia out of the way, saves her from getting hit by this van, and we see Cordelia's eyes is just completely white. She's completely blind. We see more of Xander's crush on Buffy in this episode as well. He gives her a friendship bracelet and whatnot in this episode, and this is a thing that's going to run throughout the series. Is Xander crushing on Buffy, wants to ask her out, can't get up the nerve to do it and whatnot. She hasn't got a clue at this stage. Right, they're trying to work out who this witch actually is, and for some reason they think that it might be Amy because of her obsession with trying to please her mother, and they think, okay, if she's that scared of her mother, she's going to do anything she can to make this team. So they come up with an idea, kind of like a little spell that will show a witch, and Giles gives him a whole load of things to get hold of. He mixes all this here together, make a fluid out of it and put it in the skin of a person. If the skin of if the person is a witch, her skin will turn, is it green or blue? I can't remember, I think it's blue. So in class, Buffy goes over, she needs a lock of her hair, so she grabs a bit of her hair, like she bumps under and it, like pulls a bit of hair out and whatnot. Sorry about that there, Amy, and Amy's like, okay, and they go back, get the thing sorted out. Buffy comes over, spills the liquid onto Amy's arm, and of course it does indeed turn blue. So at this moment they're like, oh my goodness, she's a witch, sort of thing. But a girl starts like screaming in the back. Well, not exactly screaming, it's more like a muffled like, and we turn, there's another girl from the cheerleader squad whose mouth has completely vanished. So at this point, even though we see that the liquid has turned blue on Amy's skin, she actually looks shocked. That's what's been happening in the class. So they don't know exactly what's going on at this point. Like, the liquid says she's a witch, but her reaction was like, you know, maybe she's not a witch. Maybe this didn't work properly. What should we do? We should go and talk to her. And Buffy's like, no, we should go and see her mother. And while all this is going on, for somehow, and it's left my head completely, Amy actually gets hold of the friendship bracelet that Xander gave Buffy. So she takes that home, and she goes in, her mother's there, and there's an interaction between her and her mother where she's like she throws her books at her mother. It's like, I need homework done, do that for me, sort of thing. So we do see that Amy is indeed the witch, but her mother is scared of her, and she goes up into the attic, into the voodoo zone, and starts making a spell. Next morning, Buffy gets up and she's like hyperactive and incredibly hyper, and you know, her mother again during breakfast tries to connect with her slightly, but Buffy's kind of like, you know, going a mile to the minute talking about stuff, and she actually drops that she's a vampire slayer to her mother in this episode, lets it slip, and her mother's like, what? But Buffy's that kind of like going that hardcore that it just kind of closes over itself again, and she leaves. We get back to the school, and Buffy is cheerleading, and at this point she's going completely hyper and whatnot, and she's like really messing things up, and she gets kicked off the team. And because Buffy's been kicked off the team, that means that Amy, the backup, can come in her place. So Xander and Willow get her out, take her to Giles. At this point she's like babbling, and what's going on with her? You know, is she under a spell? And they figure out that Amy has cast a spell on Buffy that's killing her immune system, and she probably only has a matter of hours to you know, find some way out of this here, or she's going to die, sort of thing. So it's like, we're going to go talk to her mother. Buffy and Giles both go to the mother's house. The mother answers the door, but she's kind of like, you know, you can't come in, sort of like tries to close him out. Like, Giles pushes us away, and I need to talk to you, your daughter is messing about, stuff she doesn't understand, she's going to really hurt someone, and your addiction to cheerleading is ridiculous, or your daughter is doing this sort of stuff to try and keep you happy. And the mother starts laughing. She's like, I've got no interest in cheerleading whatsoever. And Giles is like really going to town trying to get information out of her, and the mother is really nervous, tripping over her answers, and the way she's answering things, it dawns on Buffy that, is this actually Amy? So they work out that what's actually happened is that the mother, after leaving high school, got married straight out of high school, and had a kid straight away, Amy. The marriage broke up, the husband left, so she has left to bring up Amy on her own, and she blamed Amy for her life ending, so to speak. Like, nothing was as good after you were born, sort of thing. She really took it out on her daughter. And one morning, her daughter wakes up in her mother's bed, doesn't know what's happened until she looks in the mirror, and it's actually, she's swapped bodies with her own daughter. So it's actually her mother that's running around the school trying to get into the cheerleading squad. So, they get up into the attic. Giles is like, if we get our books, I can probably reverse the spells. We'll have to see. So they do. They get hold of the books. They get back to the school and to the science lab. Everything they need is there to cast these reversing spells. As this begins to happen, Amy, the witch, her mother, and Amy's body, starting to get confusing now. Starts to figure out something's wrong. She's starting to lose her focus, because one spell has been counteracted. It means all of them are being affected. So her spell that swapped bodies with her daughter is starting to not be as strong. So of course she's starting to feel the tremors of this. She knows something's going on, so she's going to go kick some ass, essentially. So off she goes, runs out of the game. At this point she's on top of the pyramid, like really going for it, like giving it the cheerleading. And Xander, Willow try to stop her from getting there. So, like, she just like knocks everybody in their ass. She goes down. At this point, Giles is reversing everything, all the spells. And at this point, Buffy's immune system is almost gone. She's on a table, moments from dying, when Amy / the mother breaks through the door to go after Buffy. And as that happens, Giles actually manages to switch the bodies again. So the mother actually ends up in her older self. Amy's okay in her own body again, and Buffy back in action. She's up, she's fighting with the witch. We'll just refer to her as the mother from here on in. And the mother is like, I'm just going to send you somewhere where you can't hurt anyone ever again. And she blasts a spell towards, could be Amy, or it could be Buffy, or it could be Giles. All three of them are in close quarters. It's like she's going to just blast everyone with this one spell. And like, she blasts this energy bolt across the classroom. Buffy at the last second knocks down a mirror, bounces the energy bolt back, and hits the mother, the witch. And she screams, and a flashlight disappears. So everything's fine and well. Episode's over and done with. The witch has been beaten, and we're having the chat in the hall with Buffy, and Amy is like, you know what, Amy, you don't have to do this anymore. I hope you're going to forget about this cheerleading. And like, Amy's, I'm just going to sit and eat junk food with my father and whatnot. We're trying to reconnect with him. Everything's fine and well. I'm glad it's over and done with. They're having a nice heart-to-heart between each other, and they're at the display case in the hallway of the trophies that the sports teams have won on Sunnydale High, and there's a little statue in there, and that was my mother's statue. There's a statue of a cheerleader with her arms in there, I guess here, and they're talking about, I wonder what happened to her. Like, she cast a spell that backfired on her. Where did she go? She could be anywhere. And Amy's like, I don't think we'll ever see her again, because she did say that she was going to send us somewhere that couldn't hurt anybody again. So Buffy and Amy walk off. It's the end of the episode, it's the closing seconds of it, and the camera pans down to the statue, behind the statue, the little statues, the hands in there. You can see Buffy and Amy walking away, and then the camera turns around. You can see the statue head on, and it zooms in to the head of the statue, and then the eyes in the statue open up, and you hear the muffled that's the witch inside the statue. Now that visual alone isn't much compared to today's standards and the sort of stuff that you would see in TV and films, but it was just the way it was done. And as I say, 20 years down the line, if I think back on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this was one episode and that's one final sequence that always stuck out to me, because I think it was because not so much of the fact that it would kind of freak you out, you know, that sort of thing, although it's a very, very good ending, but I think it was just the fact that the majority of Buffy episodes are set within the school, and every once in a while, no matter what's happening in the school, and I think even the closing season 7, the final episodes of it, when the school's getting destroyed, spoilers, we do see from time to time this case with the trophies in it, and like 7 years later in the final season, everything what's going on there, you do see this little statue still in there, and every time I see that statue, I was thinking, your woman's still in there. Maybe she's still in there screaming and nobody knows that she's there. So that's a very good episode, and to be honest, I did say at the start I didn't think it was going to be a strong episode, but definitely one worth checking out. There's a lot of good stuff in there, character building wise, and seeing the inner workings of the relationships between the main characters. This has been a production of Coins Edge Media. Check out my social media links in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening.